Hey, welcome back to part 2 of the Unnamed Boudoir Guild show. Maybe I'll just stick with that because that's simple and easy to remember. I am here still with Nathan Holritz of the Bokeh podcast, and we are having a little book club meeting where we've picked three impactful books that we've both experienced. I don't want to say read, consumed, experienced. And wanted to share with you. So we're going over our biggest takeaways, practical application, so you can actually start learning from these books before you ever pick them up. And who knows what other kind of life lessons may be coming your way today. But I guarantee you'll be better off on this planet because of this episode. Bold statement, but I'm feeling it right now.
I agree already. If anybody missed out on part 1, you better go back and listen because there was already some good stuff in there too. I was taking notes myself.
Yeah, I got a whiteboard over here I'm scribbling on too. So my second book, man, you make me want to like pivot everything. You're picking some good choices over here. I'm going to stick to my game plan now. Am I? Oh man. Okay, yeah, Brand Seduction by Daryl Weber. This one blew my mind when I read it. Now, if you look up Daryl Weber, this was a couple years ago, this kid wanted to be a backyard wrestler, so DarylWeber.com is just homemade wrestling videos of this kid hitting his friend with chairs. Not the same Daryl Weber. This is, I think Daryl H. Weber is his website, but Brand Seduction is the book. And you know, a brand means something different to everybody, but I associate, or I describe brand as being the personality of your business. You know, like we have a personality as a human. We're in this meat suit package, but we have behaviors, we have beliefs, we have actions, we have all these different qualifiers, and our business is exactly the same. Your brand is the personality of your business, and you can have things that align and you can have things that don't align. And one of the reasons I love this book specifically, he has one exercise that I teach this in the branding course in the Boudoir Guild. I've given talks on it at conferences. Absolutely love this. Daryl, if you're watching this, dinner's on me next time I see you. He was on my podcast as well, the Photogs Unite show back when that was around. The episode is called the exercise is building your brand planet. And it's like when you close your eyes and if you visualize planet Old Navy, right? Bright colors. It's very campy. You're probably going to have dancing bears. And we can all picture what the music would be like on planet Old Navy and what all the people look like and how they're all dressed. How are they interacting? Everyone's probably smiling and high-fiving and dancing. And like that is the vibe of Planet Old Navy. Whereas if we go to Planet Tim Burton, that is an entirely different world, right? Nothing's at a right angle. Black and white stripes everywhere. Spooky, gaunt. The proportions are all off. But there's also this romantic beauty about everything, right? The music is haunting, but it's like so relatable. Everyone feels everything they sing about. And we need to do that with our own brand, because you will have a brand regardless of whether or not you put intention into it. People will perceive you a certain way. And this is a great exercise to help engineer the way you want people to perceive your business. And it's just, you know, what font are all the billboards in on planet whatever your company name is? Yeah. What do people wear? What are the colors that you see everywhere? What is the music that you hear when you walk into places? What kind of stores are there? How are the people interacting with each other? And when you can visualize that sort of environment, then it makes all of the brand planning, I think, just fall into place, because you feel it and you're like, all right, I need my emails to sound like they were written by somebody on, you know, Planet Bokeh podcast or whatever it may be, right? And to me, it just makes it so much simpler to come up with any of these brand descriptors.
So when you built your boudoir photography brand, was this thought process kind of informed the way that you built that out?
Yeah, 100%.
Can you walk us through that just a little bit? Like, how did that? Because in fact, I even have your website pulled up as you were talking. Because I'm like, oh, okay, how does this translate then to the way that Mike Lloyd Studios and the Boudoir Guild, like how does that inform the look and feel of that particular site?
Totally. So very separate brands. So for Mike Lloyd Studios, and it was Mike Lloyd Boudoir. I just changed the name last year, okay. But the name is really the only thing that changed. Only because of how I classify myself. Yes, boudoir is a searchable term, but again, I'm more of a therapist with a camera. That's what I do. And
I love that, by the way. I know I told you on the podcast the other day, but I don't think I've heard another photographer say it, and I really like that.
Thank you.
You talk about creating a feeling, like that creates a feeling to me. It's not this person that's just like jamming a camera in my face and just has to get the picture and they're going to move on. It's somebody that actually cares about how I feel through that experience, and that matters. Yeah,
it's about the transformation of how you feel about yourself, as opposed to taking sexy pictures. So I wanted everything to look and feel really expensive. And Chanel ads are my favorite advertising. That's how I model all my posing, my lighting. This is going to be for my next book topic, but I had these custom candles made, and the labels
that's cool
are modeled after the Chanel No. 5 label. So,
but even the candles themselves, for anybody who's just they're not seeing this picture, it's a candle with kind of a dark gray label, if you will, and then it's black all the way around.
It's just the lighting, yeah. So it's a smoky matte black candle, and I'll get into this when I talk about the next book. And this is only going to be a video show, not a podcast, so everyone should be able to see it. Yeah, but good looking out. I know, because you do both, so I appreciate that. Yeah, everything is black and metallic silver. Those are my brand colors. So everything is that. And then purple. I do have purple as well.
It feels high end too.
Yeah, it's heavy. Everything needs to be heavy and feel and look expensive. That is the primary driver behind everything I do. So every way that I print my images, I only do wall art on metal. All the pages in my albums are super thick. I don't have, even my less expensive options are still expensive, but they're still high-end quality stuff. The way that I talk about things, the way we present hair and makeup. Shoot. The welcome sign that I hang outside my studio.
Yeah.
It's a metal print in a fancy frame. And I write on them with chalk pens. Like I want everything I do to look and feel really expensive because I want people to honor the process. I want them to invest in this, and I want them to know that it is a luxury experience that they're worthy of. That they treat themselves to like an expensive spa day or a vacation or something like that. And that was very strategic. So
it reminds me, actually, when I shot weddings for about 10 years, and here in the Chattanooga market, it's a relatively small kind of traditional market. And when we started, we were charging very little. My first wedding shot for $350, lost money, of course. Shooting films, they had to have all that film developed.
Yep.
But long story short, fast forward, and we're charging with myself and my business partner $7,000 to $10,000 to shoot a wedding in this marketplace. And so we did want to consider the environment, the feel, the experience ultimately they were providing the client to make sure that it matched this price point that we were charging.
Sure.
And have you ever had Voss water? Are you familiar with the brand?
Yeah.
VOSS? Okay. So here in Chattanooga, in fact, we still don't even have an Apple store. So the idea of Voss water was such a foreign concept, and it was the most fun thing to have these glass bottles of Voss water as part of the experience. And I'm trying to think, I think we provided it for them to drink and maybe even included in the gift bags that we gave to them, because we gave them gift bags as well. But it was such a fun experience to give them this thing, which they had 99% probably the people that saw these bottles had no idea what it was, but it immediately created an experience which felt high end. They're glass bottles, the water genuinely tastes amazing. And they'd most likely never seen this thing before. And so you immediately create an experience and a feel through that experience, which mirrored the price point that we were charging. And it made such an impact. It was so cool.
Right? It's like if you go to a fine dining restaurant and you get this incredible meal, everything's all fancy and, plated, little bites of food and sauce swirled around the plate.
Yeah.
And then you order dessert and it comes out on a paper plate. You're like, what is this? There's something broken. It doesn't fit. And there are creative ways to break the rules But that's just a sloppy, broken rule. And so when you visualize everything as being on this planet, I mean, from your emails to the way that you do your telephone consults to the way you do your image reveals, deliver your images, does everything belong on this planet? If yes, cool. If not, how do you change it so it does? And it's the checklist that I use to make sure everything in my business feels like it belongs here. There's no dissonance.
Love that.
Thank you. All right, you're up. What's the next one?
Well, I'm gonna take a risk here and go back to a non-business, quote unquote, non-business book.
Okay.
And maybe just to kind of reiterate, especially for those who didn't hear part one, I think there's some significance to emotional health and how that translates to our abilities as business owners. And it's actually highly relevant, Mike, because you've probably seen this too in our various social media feeds. There's a lot of conversation around mental health. And it can kind of range as well from, just something as simple as I'm an introvert and I'm struggling with whatever element of my business because I'm an introvert to more extreme mental health issues.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're in a place in modern culture with a knowledge base and even scientific research to back it up that would suggest that we have the ability to be able to set our belief system, to choose our belief system, and ultimately choose how to engage with our thoughts and our feelings in such a way that we can actually move beyond whatever that label that we have given ourselves. And there's a book called Living Untethered by Michael Singer that is, again, a 9 out of 10 is probably what I would give it in this case.
Yeah.
And for anybody who missed the reference, I think in the part one, 7 to 10, or if I give it a score of 7 out of 10 or higher, it's a recommendation. This is super high. So Michael very simply shares with us how to deal with that voice inside our head. Because I think a lot, and by the way, I speak from personal experience as well, a lot of the so-called issues that we find in our lives personally or professionally are driven by this narrator that we have inside of our head. And ultimately, he explains in a relatively easy to understand way that is just our brain kind of doing its thing. It's just narrating. And it actually doesn't carry any significance. It only really carries significance if we choose to give it significance. And so we have this ability as human beings to be able to separate ourselves from those thoughts and feelings and choose to engage with them how we want to. Much the same way, I pick up my phone here. I choose to pick it up. I can hold on to it as long as I want to, or I can choose to put it down. I can do the same thing with this pen or this notebook or the microphone, whatever it might be. I have the ability to choose how and when to engage with that object and when I don't want to. And unfortunately, we've almost kind of given up as a culture and just assume that we don't have any control over our thoughts and feelings, and as a result, how we function both as human beings and as business owners. And Michael explains how that's actually not true. We have the ability to choose how to engage with our thoughts and feelings, and as a result, kind of move beyond them, to rise above them, and not give them so much significance. It's just so powerful. You do have to go into it with an open mind because it's a little bit of a shift. In fact, it's a massive shift from kind of the cultural narrative at this point. But yeah. I just cannot recommend it enough.
So how have you applied it practically?
On a day-to-day basis, because I'm a pretty emotional guy, as much as I'm communicating practically and stressing the importance of practicality, I'm a super emotional guy. I'm, crying at rom-coms and music and podcasts. I mean, like that's just the guy I am. I love life and I love, I'm passionate. But at the end of the day, those feelings and those emotions ultimately put me in a lot of bad spots because I gave them significance that I shouldn't have.
Yep.
And so very, very simply on a day-to-day basis, when I find myself in a place where the stress levels are kind of coming up, and I have multiple companies and brands and so many people that I'm ultimately responsible for, it's very easy to get stressed out if I allow myself to. But when I start to sense those feelings to a more extreme level, just a quick reminder of the reality that I can choose how to engage with those feelings and the experience, and I can make of it what I want to. It's just a simple reminder, and that's really it. And I think as much as I've seen this conversation around emotional and mental health, psychological health in our industry, it's a really important concept and principle to embrace Otherwise, we're going to continue to just kind of react and almost give ourselves up to whatever the label that we've either given ourselves or maybe somebody else has given us. And we're just like, yeah, that's just who I am. It's just kind of what I got to deal with. And I'll give you one very specific example and I'll stop. There was a number of years ago, I would have by default just kind of labeled myself an introvert.
Sure.
And it's very easy to go there. And introversion is represented by a few pretty common experiences or feelings, right? But the simple summary is that we get exhausted, or our energy is drained by being around people. That's how a lot of people would describe it. And I felt that same way. And I spent a lot of time, I've been in the industry, the photography industry now for about 20 years. So I go to, WPPI and PPA, both big conferences like that, and then also smaller workshops. And I would go into the room with a lot of other photographers. And within the span of 20, 30 minutes or so, I was just drained. I was exhausted to the point where I would literally walk out of the room and I just feel like I need to take a break. And then I'd go back in and continue. And I did this over and over again. And I finally one day, I don't even remember what the trigger was, but I'm like, what is it that's actually driving this feeling? This idea that I'm getting so tired being in a room with, in many cases, certainly fellow photographers, but even a lot of friends, people that I've known in the industry for a long time. Why would I get so exhausted? It was frustrating. Long story short, what I realized was that as I was going into this room, I was trying to be something. I was trying to put on a particular persona. I'm not naturally like a highly entertaining, witty, engaging conversationalist that draws everybody in and everybody's paying attention. They're laughing hilariously. That's not my natural ability.
Sure.
It's certainly something that I could work on, but it's just not. But I was trying to go into the room and be the cool guy in the room. And I was forcing it. And as a result, I was getting exhausted. I was essentially putting on a fake persona. And that's what was actually exhausting. It wasn't that I just had the simple label of introvert and that was it. There's psychology that drives that. Introversion is a set of behavioral patterns, but there's psychology that drives those patterns. The moment that I had the ability, that I realized that I took the step back, I looked at it from a deeper perspective and realized what was actually driving it. It wasn't just simply this label, but that I was behaving in such a way that was exhausting. And I changed that behavior and I focused on what I was more naturally capable of, which was really deep individual conversations, kind of like we're having right now. Not only was I able to go into these rooms and not get exhausted, but even some of the parties where there's loud music playing in the background and I'm almost trying to yell to talk over the music in order to communicate with somebody, that stuff was no longer even as annoying or distracting as it had been before because I was just right here. And I was focused on the conversation and I was no longer trying to be this thing and forcing the issue. So all this to say, I would just encourage everybody not to just simply write yourself off to labels, not give yourself up to however it is that you feel in the moment. Realize that you can choose how to engage with these thoughts and these feelings the same way that we engage with any other object. And it takes some homework, but do the homework that enables you to begin to engage with life in that way because it puts the power back in your hands. It is empowering to borrow kind of a cliche term these days, but it's so mind-blowingly empowering. It literally just shifts your life.
Yeah, I love that. So that's how I felt the day that I went to that first conference or that event back in 2018, where I met Greg. And I flew in a little bit early and I went and I bought a new dress shirt and a watch and some new dress shoes. Like I had stuff, but I didn't feel like I was going to fit into this entrepreneur world looking like I did, with like the tattoos and the black nails. And I knew I was going to stand out in the room and I wanted people to take me seriously. And so I went and I bought this stuff and I showed up and I mean, there were people in the room in board shorts and flip-flops because it's San Diego. And then there were people in designer suits and everywhere in between, and I had my shirt tucked in and I don't think I had a tie on, but it was still like, I felt like I was putting on a costume to go to this thing. And then once I connected with Greg, he invited me to this other event and I showed up and I'm in like leather pants and a mesh shirt and big boots. Like I'm about to play with 9 Inch Nails on stage. People were like, who is this dude? And I just got to be me. And it was like this huge weight had just lifted off, Yeah. If anything, it was just a conversation starter, but I'm just connecting with people as people. And as soon as they could see, like I genuinely cared about them and who they were and wanted to know how I could serve them, everything just opened up, and I didn't have to try to feel like I fit in. So
the word try is what just really grabbed my attention as you were saying that, where we try to put on some type of persona, we force the issue. That's going to be so exhausting almost every single time. And we might be able to get by with it for a little bit, but I have to say, there's this one experience that I had at a photographer networking meeting. It was just a small gathering one time that is just so deeply imprinted on my mind, where, I mean, I'd certainly engaged with people before where you could tell they were just putting on a show in order to get through the conversation, and it feels fake. They're just kind of giving you the typical lines at a networking meeting. But in this particular case, it was so dramatic and obvious coming from this female photographer who was in the room. There was no emotion in her eyes. There were like robot eyes, and the words were coming out of her mouth like she was supposed to say, but you could tell there was so little disinterest. In fact, no interest at all, really, in the conversation at hand. And the reality is that many, if not most people, can see that. And we have to keep that in mind. It's way better, even if it feels uncomfortable initially, being ourselves, to go that direction rather than trying to force something, because people can see through the BS anyway. Yeah,
every single time. Yep. Love that. So that kind of ties into my last book. And man, I'm totally skipping books on my list, but I don't even care. So this one is called Real Artists Don't Starve by Jeff Goins. It's like coins, but with a C or with a G. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Friend of a friend.
Yep. Do you know Jeff? Or like,
I don't personally know. Okay. Just one of my good friends knows him really well and has talked quite a bit about him. So
yeah. So this is one of the big mindset shifts that anyone going from I like taking pictures to I want to run a business absolutely has to go through. And this book to me was what gave me like the practical tools and I guess the historical examples of how to do this. And the premise, real artists don't starve. We didn't get to the starving artist movement until like the beatniks of the 70s. But before that, artists were worthy of making money. And he talks about Michelangelo in this book. And I've read another book about Michelangelo specifically to just dive more into that. And despite having a similar name and being my favorite Ninja Turtle, Michelangelo was pretty spectacular. He was one of the wealthiest artists to have ever lived. If you translate money he made then to modern day currency, he made an insane amount of money. And how artists worked back then, you would go and pay a master artist to be their apprentice. And they would train you for years. And then eventually you'd be good enough to go out and do your own thing. And he didn't do that. They didn't have any money. And so he did a total gamble, power move, and basically went up to this master painter and said, I'm willing to come learn from you if you finance my education. And the guy was like, who the hell do you think you are? But no one's ever come at me like that. So maybe this kid's the real deal. And he put him through a couple of tests, and Michelangelo just like smoked the other students that were working under this guy, having no formal education. And he ended up basically getting paid to learn instead of the other way around. And then he made a ton of money selling his art and his design services over the years and just charged a bunch for everything he did. He was bold enough to do that, but he knew that he was adding value and that he was doing things that other people can't do. And it went beyond the paintbrush. It went beyond the chisel. It went beyond any of the tangibles that people took with them. And that is such a powerful lesson in the photography space, because we all have good phones right here. Good cameras right there. We don't... Our tool isn't the thing that differentiates us. Our genre, our posing, our lighting, their stylistic choices, they're not why people really hire us. And it's how I ended up as a therapist with a camera instead of a boudoir photographer, because I've learned, and this goes back to Story Brand, this goes back to the other books that we've talked about, I'm not just taking pretty pictures of people. I'm changing the way that they see themselves and helping them visualize their identity and then realize they've been that person the whole time. Like my clients nicknamed me the Wizard of Oz because I pull back the curtain and show them they're already the person they've been wishing they could be. That has nothing to do with photography. Photography is just the vehicle. And the other big mindset shift is if you feel like a sellout because you're charging money for art, there's a shift you can make. You should no longer charge money for the art that you create. You should start charging money so that you can continue to create art. Every time you get paid, they are paying your health insurance to keep you healthy and allowing you to buy good food so you're not eating cheap fast food and ramen noodles 3 meals a day. They are
Ramen's so good though, Mike. What are you talking about?
They're allowing you to take vacations and time off so that you can maintain this state of well-being. They are providing a healthy lifestyle for you because you're giving so much in return. And when you live this healthy, sustainable lifestyle, you can continue to serve more people and make a bigger impact in the world. And it's the same transaction shifted, and I absolutely loved that.
Yeah, as you were starting to talk about this, it reminded me again of the conversation around AI, which I know you and I had the other day, but people are freaking out that AI is showing up and they're like, well, this is going to take over my job. And my almost immediate internal response is, I mean, we can bring up a variety of examples. Digital to film is one of the most recent, where we think about how photographers at the time put down digital photography and made fun of it. There was a change in the industry, and we could either leverage that or we could complain. You know, whether it was going from film to digital as cameras, or the way that print delivery or image delivery changed from physical prints to online galleries. I remember having a conversation with a local lab owner who was just complaining endlessly. And I finally said one day, like, you can keep complaining or you can do something about it. But the reality is, at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. The tools are just that. The question is, how do we ultimately provide incredible amounts of value?
Yeah.
Whatever the tool is at hand, how do we add incredible amounts of value? And there's an opportunity simultaneously to personalize that. So, I mean, you're a brilliant example of just that. You're adding incredible amounts of value. Yeah, your camera is a tool in that process, but you're ultimately the therapist that happens to be using a camera that enables people to feel way the hell better about themselves, a way that they didn't even realize they could. And sorry, but AI is just not going to do that, at least not anytime soon.
Right.
And so the idea that we get freaked out about this technology coming in and taking over our jobs would actually suggest that we're thinking too small as entrepreneurs. And I think we need to shift the perspective, and we'll be able to sleep at ease at night.
Absolutely. So let's use another photography example for this. Kodak. They were the biggest film producers ever, right? They even invented the digital camera. And they decided that the photography industry was better off with film and not digital for whatever reason. Kodak is no longer around anymore, and now everyone uses digital everything, except for like the niche folks who use, film as a differentiator or whatever. But they didn't realize they were not in the film industry. They were in the photo taking industry, but they focused on the film. Like Blockbuster focused on renting VHS tapes. They weren't in the movie distribution business, which Netflix totally took over. So we are not in the taking pretty picture business. We serve another purpose, and it's up to you to figure out, what is that purpose? How do I really connect with my clients? What do they really want from me? And then when you talk about that, I charge whatever you want, because no one can recreate that. That's you. That's 100% you.
Yeah, and that's why I think while I wholeheartedly support the idea of talking about business books and business principles, you're alluding again to the reality, which is that we really need to address where we're at personally in this world. Like, what is it that the question that I ask for myself is, what is the value that I want to bring to this world? And for me, at a very base level, forget the businesses that I run, at a base level, I want to enable people to have more time in their lives, and I want to enable them to have better relationships. Those two things are very important to me, and not so ironically, they're also quite intertwined, right?
Yeah.
So that's the base level, I guess, value or set of values that I want to offer to the world. There are a million different ways that I can go about doing that. So right now, through my editing company, I'm able to do both of those things. I'm able to save photographers incredible amounts of time. And as a result, I mean, the communication that we've gotten over the years about the difference that it makes, the impact it has on relationships, whether it's with a significant other or kids or a combination of both, it's so fulfilling.
Yeah.
But the editing company is just a vehicle that enables me to be able to add that type of value to the world. And so as a photographer, just an entrepreneur in general, what I would encourage everybody watching, listening to do is take a step back and establish, I call it a big picture view. And I got that phrase from Julie Morgenstern, another book, by the way, Time Management from the Inside Out. But she said the big picture view enables the most successful people in life to rise above the chaos and maintain perspective.
Yeah.
And that is really, really important. This may feel chaotic right now. AI, technology, is it going to take over my job? Is it going to minimize the value of photography itself? But photography is just the tool. What is the value that you're ultimately adding? And that's the thing that we need to establish for ourselves. And then it could be a photography business, or it could be a different type of business that we're ultimately using as a vehicle to add that value to the world. Again, Mike, major props to you for the way that you ultimately established what it is that you want to do to make a difference in people's lives. You just happen to be using photography for that purpose. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, as far as hiring an editor, 100%. I hired one last year. She edits all of my work for me. And I did it because I had a total burnout. Like, I ended up in the hospital. Like, my makeup artist had to stop me during one of our shoots and like told me to cancel the rest of my appointments for the week. And she's like, "You are not okay." I'm like, I'm aware. But I don't know what to do about it, you know, because like I have to keep serving people. I know I'm doing a big thing. And hiring that editor, not only like now I have better looking photos because she's way better at editing than I ever was.
Sure, yeah.
But I get 2 days off every week. I went 2 years without a day off. Now I get 2 days off every week and I'm not getting less done. So my images are better. My sales average has gone up 30% in the last 2 years without me raising my prices because people like more of the photos. They're edited better. But I get time off to like have hobbies and sleep in and do whatever the hell I want to do. And that is what an editor has done for me. It's not even about the photos. I get to take care of myself so that it is a more sustainable practice for me to continue serving.
Love it. Beautiful. And it's how it should be too, by the way. Like, we got into business for ourselves to be our own boss, to have our own schedule. And yet we find ourselves just sitting at a computer for endless hours. And we get to that place where we burn out, like you were talking about. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yep. Shouldn't be. So, well, do you have any closing thoughts to send us on our way with?
I would just, kind of in line with what we've been talking about today, I would just encourage everyone to remember it's what you make of it. Whatever. Literally anything. You're thinking about something, you're stressing about something. At the end of the day, it's what you make of it. And we have that privilege. We have that opportunity. Take the power back. You choose what to make of that situation, and you'll just be so much better for it. It literally will change your life. So yeah, I'll leave you with that encouragement.
Love it. Yeah, right. We are in control. One of the things I learned from Brian Tracy is the concept of a locus of control. And it's taking an inventory of everything in our life that influences us and deciding what do we have control over and what do we not have control over. And it's why I love the serenity prayer so much. Like, I'm not a religious individual. I believe in spirituality. But the idea of this prayer is, you know, basically, what do I have control over? I can change that. Things I don't, I can't change that. And I just need to accept that that's the way that things are. And I absolutely love that because, you know, like I had a date scheduled for tomorrow and last night she just like unmatched me and like blocked me from everything. So I'm like assuming we don't have a date anymore. And part of me is like, well, we like really hit it off. I was really looking forward to this like evening out with this girl. And then I'm like, you know, that's way beyond my control. I don't think that had anything to do with me because she could have at least been like, you know what, I'm not feeling it. Whatever the case may be, but it is what it is. I cannot control that interaction, but I can decide, well, I have the night off and I have reservations. Let me call one of my best friends, like, hey, do you want to go out to this restaurant and have dinner instead? Where I know we're going to have an amazing time and I can still choose to have a great time. So yeah, we choose.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Sentaku. That's the Japanese word, the kanji on the inside of my right wrist. Sentaku, choice.
Love it.
Choice. By the way, can I throw in the bonus book, like 30 seconds?
Yeah. Why don't we each throw in a bonus book as a preview of the next episode?
Done. Relationships. You were talking about relationships.
Yeah.
Mating in Captivity.
Okay.
Esther Perel.
Okay.
It literally changed, I mean, my life, but more specifically in relation to my perspective on romantic relationships. When my ex and I split about 10 years ago, I was so immature on so many levels, including my perspective on relationships. This drastically shifted that for me. Fascinating book. Can't recommend it enough. And yeah, we can get into it more later.
That's been on my list, honestly.
It's
so
awesome.
Check out The Red Queen if you haven't already got that one too.
Okay.
Okay, so the teaser I'm gonna leave you all with, I'm super stoked about this, is The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. And it's how to create memorable experiences that have an impact on people and the different psychological triggers that go behind all of those things. And that was one of the reasons I got these candles made. And we will go more into that in the next episode.
Oh, I'm looking forward to
this. I'm glad you're on board because I was going to ask you anyway.
Done. Let's do it.
Sweet. All right. Well, that wraps up part 2 of however many this is going to end up being, but 2 at least we can record for today. You all are amazing. Again, I got the link down below so you can check out the blog post. I'm going to keep just a running list of the books we cover in each episode, so they'll be all in one database that you can always go to. boudoirguild.com/books, I think will be the easiest place to go to. And we'll link everything up there. And then other than the Bokeh podcast, which is, and not just because we're talking right now, but it's my favorite photography podcast, where else can people find you?
Nathan Holritz, NathanHolritz, nathanholritz.com. That is kind of the links to any and everything that I'm involved in at any given moment. That's the best place to go. Okay.
I will link that down below also. And man, I'm so stoked for the next episode already.
This is
so folks at home, if you got books too that you absolutely loved, they made a big impact on your life, like drop in the comments down below. Let me know what you think, or email me, mike@boudoirguild.com. And I don't know, maybe one of these days we can bring a third guest on the show to share an experience. That would be cool too. All right. You guys are amazing.
Thanks,
we'll see you inside.